Okay, welcome back everyone. My apologies about that. We're just gonna have to go for it and see if it works. What you see is what you get, unfortunately. But here we go at Adelaide for the championship finale. We're underway with Max Shepard on the inside into turn 1, but Yucca Drug has got ahead. So Yucca Drug leading into turn 1. Someone going very slowly at the back there. I'm gonna get my car off the road. So Drug leading from Shepard. Shepard taking a look to the outside. It was Bill Garucock. Oh, spinning. Martin McLaren was the car that got the bad start. Bill Grewcock is pointing backwards, and it looks, and I hope I'm not speaking too soon, it looks as if my internet has got a lot better, so whatever I did there has sorted it out, hopefully. Okay, Yucca Drug up the hill, leading from Shepard, then Lance, Brown, Talviti, Yorth, Van der Geest, McLoon, Grewcock, as we come onto the back straight towards the end of the opening lap of the race. All of the cars in a line, slipstreaming each other over the curve of turn 10, now known as turn 8, although the corner was further up the road back then, so you've got a longer straight here than you do these days. This circuit, of course, first used in 85, reopened in 99 after Formula 1 stopped going here, and is still used to this day for V8 supercars and all of its subcategories. So, at the end of the opening lap, it's Drug leading from Shepard and Lance. And if I seem a bit absent on this opening lap, it's because I'm trying to get everything sorted out with the stream. My apologies. Okay, back to the action. My sincerest apologies about that. Martin McLean, meanwhile, has been off the road again, and Bill Grewcock has gone up into 8th position, so not a good opening lap for either of those guys, although Martin McLean getting off slightly worse. I say, though, although Grewcock did have the spin, so his tyres may feel worse after this lap. So, here we're looking at the championship fight. You've got Drug ahead of Lance, who's in 3rd. Shepard's between them, and Shepard, of course, is not in that championship fight, but could very much play a part in this. He knows he's got so much less to lose than Yucca Drug, and a lot of people in Drug's position will probably just let him through here because they know that Shepard's going to be aggressive. He's going to be going for it, and Drug cannot afford to be taken off here or to make a significant mistake here, because if Drug finishes 7th or lower, or doesn't finish as Max Shepard locks up and always goes into the back of Drug, as if to emphasize my point. But yeah, if Drug finishes 7th or lower, he loses the championship, providing Lance wins. Meanwhile, Van der Geest has just overtaken Donny Yorth for 6th position in a fight with Tony Talviti, very reminiscent of the fight they had with Maxim Tendel a week ago. That was quite an amazing fight, and if you want to go back and look at the race we had at Mosport last time out, you can. It's still up on YouTube for anyone to view. And of course, by saying that these drivers, or Drug, can't risk going out, I'm not implying that Shepard's a dirty driver. He very much isn't. Although when you're racing this hard with someone, there's always an opportunity for things to go wrong, especially in difficult cars to control like this. Oh, and welcome back to the glitching, or not welcome back, rather. Everything okay in the end. Still Drug leading from Shepard and Lance. Nothing changed as much as it looked like it did. It definitely seems that whatever I did appears to have made the stream better, less glitchy, so you're welcome, but I'm just sorry that happened in the first place. John Van der Geest, meanwhile, is in the pits, and appears to be our first retirement, so we've had one retirement already. Adelaide already biting people, and I knew it would, because Adelaide, of course, is one of the most difficult circuits we've ever been to with SimRacingOnline. Definitely the trickiest on the calendar. And of course, having cars like this, classic single-seaters racing on a street circuit, it's an interesting combination, one that not many people would have really thought of doing. Of course, back in those days, street circuits weren't really that common, and even if they did race at street circuits, it tended to be that they'd race on very open kind of country roads, much like Montjuic Park, which took place on the side of a mountain, basically. Meanwhile, Max Shepard set the first of the race on that last time around, trying to chase down Jukka Drug. And it seems that my game has given up wanting to work properly. I'm afraid there really is nothing that I can do about this, and I'm going to have a look at my internet between races and see if I can get it to work better, but I don't want to stop streaming here because this is a championship decider, and well, I'm afraid this may have to effectively be a radio broadcast for the rest of it, especially if you're epileptic. Make sure you look away from the screen. Don't want anyone having a seizure just because of some glitchy, laggy graphics. Down into the hairpin again. Drug leading by 0.7 of a second from Shepard at this point in time. They're getting away in the early stages from Laurent Lans in third place. The other championship contender, of course, there was a third championship contender coming into this round, although unfortunately Tim Muttram, who has been Drug's closest rival throughout all of this season and last, was not able to make it here today. However, Laurent Lans has been a very, very good contender as well. Hasn't yet beaten Drug in a race, however, he has finished on the podium every single time, just as Jukka Drug has. Drug setting the fastest lap of the race again. Now I wonder whether it's when I change camera view that it all starts glitching, because I've left it following Shepard for a while now and it's been okay. That's interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it looking at Shepard for a while and see if it sorts itself out. And probably stop mentioning it because I think I may be cursing it somehow. Okay, so the gap between Drug and Shepard now just a second. Less than that. It's been less than that pretty much the entire race so far. And Max Shepard, who hasn't made a round of this championship yet, is showing us all that maybe if he'd done the full season he could have been a contender. He was talking to me just before the race and saying that he's not thinking about winning it. He just wants to go out there and have as much fun as he possibly can and see how well he does. But he's doing an excellent job so far, beating one of the championship contenders. He's a driver that really has been improving in recent races, of course. As towards the end of last season we saw him getting quicker and quicker and then challenging for podiums right at the end. Jukka Drug, fastest lap of the race. He's responding to the pressure, but Shepard's also still pushing, setting his personal best so far. However, we are less than 10 minutes in, so that doesn't really mean that much at this point in time. But it definitely seems as if both of them are still pushing on. So let's have a look at this Adelaide circuit, as we didn't really get a chance to in qualifying. I'm going to risk changing the camera view and ride on board with Jukka Drug. Some of the circuit has changed. This part that we're going through now, turns 9 leading into 10, they don't exist on the modern circuit. The modern circuit turns off much further down the road. And that turn 10 there, I believe where Mika Hakkinen had his life-threatening incident in 1995, no longer used, although turn 8, as it is today, it's still a ferocious, fearsome, very dangerous corner. Through the hairpin towards the end of the lap, this sector's remained relatively unchanged. Almost a stadium-like sector with all of the grandstands off to the right, and now to the left as well, as we fly into the final 2 right-handers of the lap, the final corner here. Over 90 degree, it's a proper hairpin. Although it doesn't really feel like it because it's relatively fast for a hairpin. Over the start-finish line, that's the fastest lap of the race so far for Jukka Drug. through the dangerous opening chicane with that massive curb that can tend to flick cars up. Never really liked that first chicane, but it certainly does provide some action. Through turn 3, there are street names, although, again, I don't have the track map up for graphical reasons. And we head now towards a first chicane, which isn't on the modern layout. The modern track's already turned off here, although that chicane there leads you back up to where we picked up. And Drug puts down the power and continues to extend his lead. 2 seconds now is the gap over Max Shepard. So let's look at our other championship contender now. Laurent Lance running in 3rd position. And still running in that green car. Now, if I can distract myself just for a minute, now that it's all calmed down, I want to let a few people know that the stream is up and that we have a new stream. So I'm going to risk losing the... Actually, no, the video quality's just gone apart as soon as I've loaded up Google Chrome. So I won't do that. I'll I suppose have to sort it all out after the race. My apologies for the technical issues. I got new internet recently. It appears that it is not an upgrade. Oh, yikes. Anyway, Yuka Drug, again, fastest man on circuit. 2.3 seconds now his gap to Max Shepard as Lons bounds over the curb behind him. Lons very much still could win the championship here. Of course, with Van der Geest retiring now, the worst that Drug can do is 8th position. And that means that I think he does have to win this race. So he'll probably need something to happen to Drug. Well, he will need something to happen to Drug, because he'll need Drug to finish 7th or 8th. And he'll also need to catch back up to Max Shepard somehow as well. It's unlikely, especially since we're already 10 minutes into the race and the field started to spread out. But definitely could still happen. This is a street circuit. Marty McLuhan's had enough. Oh, he's in the pits. So whatever's happened to Marty McLuhan, he may be our 2nd retirement. Yuka Drug back onto the straight. Let's have a look at Donny Yorth in the number 1, although not last season's champion. In fact, he's new for this series. And appears to have been enjoying it. He's had some close fights this season with Bill Grucock, with John Van der Geest, with Maxim Tendel, who is not here today, and currently running 4 seconds down the road from Tony Talviti as Drug sets yet another fastest lap of the race. And Shepard himself also still pushing, also setting his personal best, but it seems that Drug has suddenly got into a rhythm. And when Drug gets into a rhythm, you don't really stand much chance of keeping up with him, unless your name is Tim Muttram. You're to the end of another lap of racing. Of course, Yorth, one of the drivers on the grid who is yet to win a race with SimRacingOnline so far, along with, I think, Bill Grucock, as well as Marty McLuhan and Max Shepard, and Laurent Lance for that matter. It's amazing to believe that Laurent Lance is yet to win a race with SimRacingOnline. He's got so many close, he's taken so many podiums, yet no victories. I'm sure that elusive first win isn't going to take him long to get. However, it doesn't appear to come this season. Drug and Shepard getting away from him at this point in time. In fact, Drug already about 10 seconds down the road. It's quite something that Drug is pulling out already. Bill Grucock, currently the last remaining runner. Oh, Talviti's had a mistake. Shame we just cut away from Yorth there, because yeah, he's got past Tony Talviti, so didn't see how that happened. I believe it must have been a mistake from Talviti. He was 4 seconds up the road last time we looked. Shepard, another personal best. Yeah, Donny Yorth into the top 5, and I think this would be his first ever top 5 finish if he was to finish here. Talviti, I'm sure, will still be pushing, but as you were saying, yeah, Grukok now 7th position because Marty McLoone has retired from the race, becoming our 2nd retirement. Through the opening chicane of the lap, we now have half an hour to go, so 15 minutes done already. Very different lines on the exit of the corner there. And actually, Yorth and a few of the other drivers who were fighting over the lower positions in the top 10 last time I took Mosport said to me afterwards they found it humorous how I said they were taking different lines, because they said that wasn't deliberate, it was just that this car is so difficult to control, they were just letting it take them wherever it wanted to. And that is very much how you drive these cars sometimes. It's not necessarily about what you make the car do, it's about what you let it do. The prime example of wrestling the car, they call that the limit of adhesion. It's not short for grip, there's a lot of mechanical prowess in those tyres and in that suspension. Although, of course, you do have the disadvantage of not having aerodynamics yet. The only aerodynamics that were really on the car were its streamlined body shape. Although, even that had its drawbacks with the engine, the driver and the wheels sticking out at awkward angles. And of course, you don't get downforce from a streamlined shape. Wings were only introduced in 1968, so 2 years later. This is the 1966 spec McLaren, the M2B. The very first McLaren Formula 1 car, as driven by Bruce McLaren and Phil Hill. Of course, these cars slightly slower, slightly earlier than the 67 cars that we've been racing in previous seasons of the GPL Challenge. Of course, we've been racing 1967 cars previously, and this first series using the McLaren M2B has definitely still been providing excitement, and it's been very unpredictable pretty much the whole way through. Mosport last time out was one of my favourite races that I've commentated with SimRacingOnline, very close all the way up and down the field. And also Montjuic Park, if you're looking for a chaotic race, then definitely go back and watch the round from Montjuic Park. That was the round where Drag Lons and Muttram had their closest three-way scrap for the lead, and all made mistakes at various points. Talking mistakes, that's one there from Tony Talviti, slithering off onto the grass, and that's what happens when you brake with a wheel on the grass on the outside. There's just no grip, and off you go. And that's given Yorth 3 seconds advantage. Not much grass on this circuit, of course, because it's a street circuit. It is kind of in a park, very much like Albert Park is today. However, the majority of it just has walls and concrete as runoff areas. There's some grass though in the final sector, although that can sometimes be a disadvantage, because if you get on that grass it can cause you to slide off, as we've just witnessed. Let's have another look back at Bill Grukok quickly. Grukok got his best result 2 rounds ago when he finished 4th, running 7th in this race so far. Possibly has one of the best liveries on the grid. A very nice icy shade of blue and white. And currently about 16.8 seconds back from anyone else, but hopefully enjoying it nonetheless. Got some clean road in front of him, and most drivers would kill for a bit of clean road sometimes. And to not have a car nipping at your heels is always a nice feeling, even even if that that means that you're in last place. Through the hairpin, kicks the car out on the rear. These cars do have a considerable amount of power, absolutely nothing compared to modern Formula 1 cars with the hybrids and turbos. However, 66 F1 cars, because they were so light, the power just had so much of an effect. They have the power to weight ratio of, well, I actually don't know what the power to weight ratio equals, but I can imagine it's something like a flea or something. Because they are so light, so nimble, so agile. Not sure quite how much horsepower they have, probably about 300, maybe 350. But despite that, still very fast. And they were to get even faster a year later in 67. And Drug still setting fastest laps. Another fastest lap of the race from him. Last season, of course, there were points handed out for fastest laps. This season, there aren't. This season, we've gone for a more attendance-based point system, which means, basically, the more races you attend, the higher up the championship you're going to be, no matter how quick you are, basically. And because the points are also so close together in terms of the finishing order, the championship's very close as well, and it means that you really can't afford to have too many mistakes unless your opponents miss races, and you can't afford to miss races either, as Tim Muttram unfortunately has had to do. Grukok putting the power down out of the final corner, going on to another lap of racing. So let's have a look further up the field again. Max Shepard still running nicely in second position in a lovely shade of pink there. I don't normally like pink, although I must say that's probably the best shade of it. Works well with a race car. I'd actually prefer it to that gold car of Yuka Drug ahead, but anyway. Shepard puts the power down. He's gaining on Drug slightly on this lap. In fact, sets his personal best lap of the race. First lap inside the 135s from Mac. Whoa, look at that! Huge over the curb. Yeah, that's going to cost him some time. Big mistake from Shepard in the early part of the lap. Just got a big swapper run and bounded over the curbs on the inside of turn 2. He's now 4 seconds back from Yuka Drug. As near as makes not much difference. And Tony Talviti is caught straight back up to the back of Tony Yorth again. We saw him make that mistake earlier, and now he's got back onto the tail of him. This is the fight for 5th position. Talviti taking a wider line in to try to get the power down on the exit. Across the line, Talviti about 2 seconds faster than Yorth on that last lap. I think Yorth may have made a mistake, but even so, personal best from Tony Talviti. Gets right up close to the barrier. You can tell that he's on the offence here. You can tell that he's chasing. A couple of right 90-degree corners here, as you often get on a street circuit. And Talviti now just 9/10 of a second back from Yorth, less than that. Through the outdated chicane, past a rather nasty curb that tends to treat you like a skateboard if you decide to slide over it. Yuka Drug once again first lap of the race. Seems to set that every time around. Talviti now in the slipstream of Yorth. Down the back straight, this is where Mansell famously had his tyre blowout that cost him the 1986 Formula 1 World Championship and gave it to Alain Prost. 85, of course, was the first time that a race was held here. The championship was wrapped up here in 86. And also some other years, I think, although I can't think of which off the top of my head. There were other famous races here. 1995 had the largest winning margin of all time when Damon Hill won by 2 laps over Olivier Panis after his teammate David Coulthard crashed in the pit lane, and it is a difficult pit lane here, so lucky we're not going to be seeing any mandatory pit stops. And of course that 95 race was the last Formula 1 Grand Prix held at Adelaide. Since then it's been hosting V8 Supercars races, hosting the opening round of the championship every year, I believe. Ooh, Talviti's lost it, has he? Well, that was very, very sideways, very wide indeed. Talviti seeming a little bit under pressure here today, possibly. Just overcooking it a couple of times. It's the second or third mistake we've seen him make, although still we know that Talviti is a good driver. We've seen him winning SimRacingOnline championships before. I'm not sure if he's ever won one on Assetto Corsa. I think that the majority, if not all of his championships, are on R-Factor 2. I wonder whether maybe he's better on R-Factor 2 than on Assetto Corsa, although Talviti, I think, has been strong in the RSS GT1 championship that we're running as well. Yeah, he has been, because he was in that Celine. Still on the back of Yorth though, despite the mistake. He's close to just 0.6 of a second back, but because this is a street circuit, it's difficult to pass on. Ooh, big mistake! Yorth going over the curbs, just as we saw Shepard doing a few laps ago. This could give Talviti the chance he needs. Goes to the outside into turn 4. Not able to switch back. You have to get right around the outside of your opponent there if you want to do so. I've just remembered another championship that was famously decided here at Adelaide. 94, of course, when Michael Schumacher went into the wall and then deliberately took out Damon Hill when he tried to pass him. And yeah, I do believe it was deliberate. I think it was pretty undeniably deliberate, to be honest. Schumacher ended up claiming that championship. Rightfully or wrongfully. I think wrongfully. But whatever the case, we're going to see another championship claimed here today for either Drug or Lons, you have to say at this point in time, with just 17 minutes remaining. It's looking very, very good for Yuka Drug in the braking zone. Less than 0.8 of a second between Yorth and Talviti. This, of course, the circuit where Nigel Mansell took his last Grand Prix victory. Pretty sure someone else took their first here as well, but I'm not entirely sure. I know that Gianni Morbidelli took his only F1 podium here. And Adelaide, quite famously, was also the site of the shortest Grand Prix in Formula 1 history. In 1991, when the race was red flagged after just 14 laps due to heavy rainfall and an accident which left Nigel Mansell with minor injuries. And another reason that Adelaide was famous, of course, was for an incident that I mentioned earlier, which was Mika Häkkinen's near fatal accident in 1995 at the corner that we're just approaching now, turn 10, which is here, after he spun the car around, got it over the curb and bounded into the barrier. And oh no, it was this corner, sorry, there we go. It was only saved by some quick actions from the paramedics. And as I say pretty much every round, I'm glad that we're doing this on a sim rather than in real life, because this would be very dangerous to do in real life. Historic racing on a street circuit. It does happen, although drivers taking it considerably considerably more gently when it happens in real life. And these drivers today really going for it, like you wouldn't dare to do in one of these cars. Of course, the Monaco Historic springs to mind, and there's also one that happens in, is it Antwerp, maybe? Maybe getting that completely wrong. Another mistake from Jorth. We've seen him making that one a couple of times as he barons over that curb. Now can Talviti have more luck this time? Still no, he got to within 0.2 of a second of Jorth, but just wasn't able to capitalise. He has less than 15 minutes to go to do that now. And still, if they were to finish like this, Yuka Drug would claim the championship by a huge, huge margin. Although Lauren Lons would claim second in the championship ahead of Tim Muttram, who isn't here today. Disappointing way to end the championship, with Muttram not being able to challenge. Although, with Drug showing the form that he's showing, I don't really think that Muttram would have stood a chance of winning the championship today anyway, although we can't guarantee, something may have happened between the two of them. We'll never know. So, towards the last sector of the circuit again. Jorth needs to make sure that he doesn't make that mistake into turn 1 again, because do that too many times and I tell you what, Talviti will make it through on at least one of those occasions. Here we go again, down the start-finish straight. Talviti putting pressure on Jorth, showing him to his mirrors. And Jorth keeps it within the lines. Does touch the curb slightly, but that won't affect him that much at all. Despite the fact Talviti gets a real slingshot run out of turn 3. Back through the 90-degree corners. That was where Talviti... Yeah, Talviti really gains in the last sector of the circuit and the opening couple of corners, but as soon as you start to get to the street circuity bit, the 90-degree corners and the chicanes, Jorth starts to gain a little bit, starts to pull away that gap again. Now a 30-second gap between Jorth and Brown, so I was saying that the top 4 are quite significantly faster than anyone else in the field today. I think that's proving it. That's okay though. Still, it just shows you that wherever you are in the field, you'll have someone to race against, either on the road or in the championship. I say that, although actually not a lot of people are running together today, just Jorth and Talviti at the time being. Everyone else separated by at least 10 seconds, goodness me. Because Bill Grukok's now dropped to 30 seconds back. 34 seconds back as I speak. Talviti taking a much tighter line, that's interesting, because that won't set him up quite as well out of the final corner as he's used to. Still a 10th of a second faster on that last lap is Tony Talviti, or was Tony Talviti. They both run over the curb slightly. Again, this is where Talviti's strong, this is where he has the grunt, but there's just no way through that. Just no way through that he can find yet anyway. And has to still settle for 6th position behind Jorth, who's doing a good job of defending that position so far. Not used to seeing Talviti struggling to get past someone. Ooh, that's a big slide from Talviti there. Got much higher up the curb than he would have liked. Lauren Lons sets a personal best lap of the race there. Gets within 9 seconds of Shepherd, but again, it looks as if it's going to be too little, too late. He's going to need someone ahead of him to make a mistake. So, the race continues. Yuka Drug still leading. Down the long straight towards the hairpin. It's a difficult hairpin to get right. You often see drivers making out-braking manoeuvres on the car ahead of them, getting it all wrong and ploughing straight on, or into the car in front. I've seen that in Formula 1, in V8 supercars, in touring cars, in sim racing. Luckily hasn't happened today. Surprised that Drug hasn't reached traffic yet, because I thought that Bill Grewcock would only be a few seconds up the road. Let's have a look at where Grewcock is. Actually, it looks as if Grewcock's already a lap down, so we didn't see it happen, but it has happened somewhere. Good job that it happened cleanly. Now where's Tony Talviti in relation? Well, he's still fighting. Actually, he's dropped a second further back from Doneyorth now. They're just right. So Drug may catch them before the end of the race. It really depends on the speed differential between the two in these remaining 9 minutes. But Drug still running cautiously at this point in time. Still going well. Under the Foster's banner. Not using quite as much of the track as he could do through turn 10, but that's okay. He doesn't need to risk anything. He's got a 16.9 second advantage over Max Shepard now. Down into the hairpin again. This is a very Yucca Drug-like performance. You don't normally see drivers building up this much of a gap in this short amount of time, but Yucca Drug can, and Yucca Drug does. Reminds me very much of the first series before Tim Buttram came along, when he was just uncontested. Now don't worry, he's not in the barrier there, that's just the game glitching out again. Oh, did Shepard just have a brief off there? His name came up as red on my screen, and that may have been... He seems to have lost a second. That may have been a brief off, or it may have just been the game thinking he was off the road because of the glitches I was experiencing. Not entirely sure, but hopefully he's okay. That lap appeared to be okay. Wasn't the best of laps. Lost a little bit of time, but that's okay. Alright, who should we have a look at now? Max Shepard. Normally I'd ask you to post who you want me to have a look at in the chat, but since I've had to close the chat down to keep my stream alive, I'm afraid I haven't had a chance to... I won't have a chance to have a look at that, so my apologies. Oops, just accidentally clicked on Chrome. If everything starts lagging, you know why. Okay, shut it down again. Right. Max Shepard still running 18 seconds back from Drug, 6 seconds up from Lund. Doing an excellent job heading for what will be his first podium with, first podium with the GPL series, I believe. I think he's had podiums in other series before, including the Classic F3 series. Actually, I know he has because I was racing against him. Finished second at Classic Spa in race 2, if I remember correctly, and also finished second or third at Imola in F1 1976. And I know that because it was mistakes from me both times that gave him those positions, so I still think he owes me something, but whatever. Towards the end of another lap, Phil Brown, haven't seen much of him yet today. He's running in the number 2, doing a good job in 4th position, but he's had... Ooh, running wide. Yeah, he's had probably the least eventful race of anyone so far. Barely even had to mention his name. Just running completely on his own clean race. Whoa, over the curb, getting airborne. Keeping it under control though. 20 seconds now, Drug's gap for the lead. That's humongous from Yucca Drug. An absolutely wonderful performance with just 5 minutes left in the race and the championship. And it looks as if Drug will be the dominant victor here at Adelaide. Brown getting a little kick of oversteer over that outside curb. Through the chicane. That chicane much harder than it looks. I can tell you from experience. Because the car wants to understeer on the entry unless you clip the curb, and then it just wants to fire you into the wall. And there was a big skatey curb on the outside as well, which you can very much rail slide over, especially in a flatter single-seater. Of course, back in the 60s, because aero hadn't been invented yet, well, it had, but it hadn't been added to Formula 1 yet. Of course, the cars acted a lot more like buggies. They were much slidier, much rockier, and the suspension travelled a lot more. Although as soon as the 70s turned around, suddenly it was all about making your car as stiff as possible so that the aero would work. But still, of course, back in the 60s, you can see just how much the cars move under braking and into the faster corners. Lons, meanwhile, has caught up to 2.5 seconds behind Brown, so that could still behind Shepherd, sorry, so that could still be on. Yeah, definitely still looking like something that could change. Let's look back at Donny Yorth though briefly. He seems to have got away from Tony Talviti for the time being. Talviti seems to have been... every time he catches up to the back of Yorth, he makes a mistake and drops back again. Gained about 0.4 of a second on that lap though. Just 3 minutes left on the timer. That means I think we're going to get 2 more laps, because Drug is just about to complete that lap. Indeed, he does complete that lap. So I think now we have 2 more laps in the race. This one that Drug is on now, and then 1 more. So Yorth will have 2 to go after this lap, unless he gets lapped. Over the curbs in the chicane, touching the grass on the inside. First time we've seen anyone doing that so far today. But still under control. Another 0.3 of a second gain from Lons, so that's something I'm keeping half an eye on. That fight for second. Not really a fight for second. Might become one if Shepherd makes a mistake, but for the time being it seems to be relatively stable and stationary. They say stationary, but these cars are still moving at quite a considerable rate of knots. Not sure quite how fast they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're reaching 150 miles per hour or so by the end of the straight. Through the corners, of course. Not entirely sure, although it will be slower than a modern day Formula 1 car, obviously. And at the end of that lap, I think Talviti gained about a second, despite that being Yorth's first lap of the race. In fact, both Yorth and Talviti set personal bests. Yorth gets it all wrong. Just keeps it under control. Talviti's going to be right back on his tail now, as Yuka Drug goes on to the final lap of the race. I want to keep an eye on this battle for 5th, because this could still change in the final 2 laps. Especially if Yorth makes another mistake like that as he goes on to the last lap. Don't worry, I will catch Drug when he crosses the line. I'm not going to miss out on our new champion being crowned. I say new champion, although he did win the last 2 GPL championships as well. We've run 3 GPL championships this year, and Yuka Drug is going to be the victor in all 3 of them. Although, still, this looking like a fight that could change. Also, Lons now within 2 seconds of Max Shepherd on the last lap of the race. Again, I think it's too little too late for Lons. Although it's going to be relatively close between the 2 at the end. So, let's take a look now at Yuka Drug as he approaches the final few corners through the arena section. He was fought hard this series by Tim Muttram, and also had a few battles with drivers like Laurent Lons and the absent Lewis Defour as well. But he stayed strong, stayed smooth, and Jukka Drug is going to win again. That's why he's the champion. That's why we regard him so well. Jukka Drug wins again and claims the championship of Season 3 of the GPL Championship. Absolutely wonderfully done from him. And we're going to get a first podium as well from my good friend Max Shepard. First GPL podium. Fantastic as Drog does donuts. That's quite a sight. Max Shepard second. Well done, Mac. Lauren Lands fought hard, but commiserations to him for only finishing third. Brown's going to spin. So Brown, well, he's got 46 seconds of a gap back to Yorth. I think he's still going to claim fourth, although that was a little bit of a hairy movement on the last lap of the race there. But yeah, congrats to Drug, to Shepard. And also good job to Lons as well. Lons, it should be noted, claimed second in the championship after finishing on the podium at every round. Phil Brown fourth, not bad at all, despite that spin on the last lap. And now we've got this fight for fifth coming to the line. Can Talviti launch anything into the final corner, maybe? I doubt it. It would be ambitious, although I've seen it done before. It's where Senna and Mansell collided in 92, of course. Into the final corner. Game glitching a bit. Yorth keeping fifth. So Donny Yorth just about is going to hold off Talviti, despite fighting him for what seemed like possibly 2/3 of the race. Talviti was sixth in the end. Bill Grewcock was seventh, and that is the end of the race and the championship. Retirements for Marty McLuhan and John Van der Geest, unfortunately. But yeah, fantastic job from Jukka Drug to claim 3 championships out of 3. Absolutely perfect. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you when I commentate the final round of the SRO RSS GT1 Championship coming up soon. So make sure you tune in to that. Not sure when the next GPL series we're going to do is, if we're going to do another one. I expect we're definitely going to do something like this. If you want to get involved with Sim Racing Online, you very much can. We have races on all sorts of sim racing platforms, which you may have, including Assetto Corsa, Assetto Corsa Competizioni, R-Factor, R-Factor 2, Project Cars, Automobilista, and also some other sim racing platforms as well that have escaped the top of my head. But anyway, so yeah, definitely head to the site simracingonline.com if you want to get involved. Anyway, that's been it from me today. Apologies about the streaming difficulties. I'll try to get them sorted out for next time. Thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to our new champion, Jukka Drug.